Good evening, and welcome to the June 6, 2018 meeting of the Public Works Committee of the Abington Township Board of Commissioners. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Hecker.
Here.
Rothman. Sedona.
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Brightman.
Here. Thank you. Our first item of business this evening is a motion to approve the minutes of the May 2nd, 2018 Public Works Committee meeting. May I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes from May 2nd? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Our first order of business this evening is we will be having a presentation about the SEPTA Jenkintown Flood Mitigation Project, and I will turn this over to the Township Manager to make the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Hecker.
Thank you.
As you see, we have Dennis Stefanski with us, who is going to be the primary presenter, and he's going to introduce his guest.
First of all, good evening. My name is Dennis Stefanski with SEPTA's Engineering Maintenance Construction Department. I appreciate the time. I also have with me Wendy Green-Harvey from our Government Affairs Department at SEPTA. The purpose why I'm here today is SEPTA is beginning their resiliency program throughout our system. One of our projects was the Jenkintown Flood Mitigation Project. A small portion of that impacts Abington Township. Just in general, this is off of the Hurricane Sandy Relief Fund Appropriations Act. This particular project is a $15 million construction project, $20 million total, about $5 million in design. We have been in the progress of this design or working through this for about 2 years now. I'll get into a little bit of the details of the other impacts to the other townships, but for the most part, this work will occur in Cheltenham Township. There is a small portion, like I stated, in Abington. As you see here, we have gentlemen installing culverts at one of our locations along our tracks just south of the Washington Lane Bridge. What is above them is rail ties. That is why we need to do this project. We have issues where flooding occurs, it builds up against our ballast and completely blows out the subgrade to our tracks. And we need to take precautions to avoid that so we can recover quicker after these superstorms as they continue. The biggest thing that we've been working with, we have been working closely with the Army Corps of Engineers. We've also been working closely with the PADEP. There's multiple projects and multiple interest groups working in this area, and we are aware of that as we're progressing our designs. Currently, I would state we're at 30% design that I could formally submit to any group for peer review. We have progressed to 60% design. However, we're holding off on that until feasibility study is released by the Army Corps. We want to make sure there's no overlap. Again, why this is important, as you all know, multiple rail lines go through the Jenkintown station. It impacts about 5 million annual boards at that station. North of the station is 37 stations, and I always joke around, if we lose Jenkintown, we lose the north, and it's the truth. So we have to make sure that this station remains open. There is the importance of the hydraulic and hydrologic study in this area. We recognize whatever SEPTA does impacts people downstream as well as upstream. So we're really trying to take that into account as we progress our design forward. This is the only area that impacts Abington Township out of this whole entire project. This location is just north of Jenkintown Station. It is off of Jenkintown Road and West Avenue, Walnut Avenue, I apologize, across the right-of-way from our new substation that was constructed. What I'm targeting to do or planning to do in this particular area is focusing on establishing a drainage basin in here that when we have a large storm, this will account for all the flow coming down our tracks and from Bader Run into Coney Creek. Basically, our track serves as the new stream when we have a massive flooding. Again, this area would strictly be on our right-of-way. We would not be acquiring any additional property, and we would be looking to trying to make this a basin, but that would not maintain or hold water after the storm. The idea is this basin would drain out within about 24 hours. We would install new cross drains that would take the water from the red circled area I'm showing here back across the tracks to Coney Creek. This is just to give an indication of the global work or from a plan view of where the basin would be located. Again, it would go up to our property line. We would most likely, just because of access to the basin and making sure that we're maintaining it, we'll probably use some type of, we haven't gotten completely into these details yet, but we'll probably use some type of hydro seed, like a wildflower mix or a meadow grass mix. So it'll be a low maintenance, but SEPTA would maintain this. Across the tracks, we're trying to introduce some form of what we define as sinuosity. Right now, it's very channelized the way the stream acts in this area. We'd like to try to open the stream banks and increase the ebbs and flows of the stream so there's additional area for us to retain some water. This is just a plan view to the north, or to the upper portion of the project. If I draw on this, use this. This section here is that introduced to the sinuosity I was discussing. To here is the drainage basin. As you see, our property line is roughly here. So our plan is to step, right now we are showing us working directly up to the property line. I've talked to the engineers. We'd like to get about 5 feet off the edge of the property line and push the basin a little bit closer to our right of way. And as I stated, we're not going to be encouraging or taking on additional property.
The property line at the top.
The property line at the top, it's not clearly shown, but where this dark heavy line is here, that's the property line. No problem. Just try to clear that back off. I'll stay on this for a second if anyone else has. So, yes, sir.
Which side of the map is the Abington side?
How was this?
Which side of the map is the Abington side?
Both, actually, sir. The basin, I believe, from what we understood, was Jenkintown, Abington. Abington is this as well.
Which side of this map are the Abington properties?
Up here, sir.
Okay.
But we recognize that there's construction activities and could impact both.
Matt, if you go back a slide to where the two green areas are, the next slide is the portion of the green area in the Abington side.
Let me do this. Abington side's here, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I was more interested in the actual construction impacts.
But construction impacts will be coming off of Jenkintown. So this is our, let me clear this one more time, and I can doodle our actual, we'd be coming down Jenkintown, coming down Walnut. We have an access road here. And then that would impact Abington. And then from a noise perspective, our Carpenter sidings towards the south here, we'd be coming in from our track offices from Jenkintown and be coming up our right-of-way to complete this work here, sir.
More precisely, my concerns are the property owners that are adjacent to it, who live in my ward. I want to get a better sense of what the impact to their property will be.
To their properties, there should be no impact directly because we would be working up to the property line, but my recommendation is I speak directly we would do a door-to-door and speak to those property owners, one, so they can understand noise levels, things of that nature, because they just went through us building that substation there.
Right.
I think it would be good for myself to try to speak to them. To the level, we've already improved, let me take a step back. We've already made a lot of improvements to this area. On that side of this stream, there's multiple bioswales and retainage basins there, or rain gardens right there existing now. We would just be doing some minor improvements to increase that.
Okay.
But there will be construction activities, and there would be traffic impacts that we have to do analysis on still. Like I said, we're at 30% coming off of Jenkintown and Walnut that I think we would need to talk to and make sure that our traffic permits are in place and noise ordinances and things like that. With this particular project, I would expect us to be doing all this construction during daylight activities. Typically with the railroad, we're usually working at night. We're far enough off the tracks that I probably can put a construction fence or a visible barrier to keep the contractor off the tracks and allow us to work during daylight, which should be much better than the normal way that we do this. The other positive that we have, I know there's been complaints with laydown area on this side here, which is the Jenkintown side. With this basin going in, there would be no space to do laydown anymore, so it'd actually beautify the right-of-way in this area too.
Okay. I want to work with the manager and yourself. I want to be involved and advise this project every step of the way.
Certainly, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
What I'm looking at
This is the railroad tracks, ma'am.
Okay. I'm just trying to get, because actually one of these is and I know where you did your other, right, the bridge, I'm looking at that.
The new you're right, the new access road coming off.
So it's going to work in there first.
That's correct. So, and then there's a number of other major projects as we go further down past Jenkintown, but it doesn't impact Abington directly. The positive, though, the backflow, because there is, just doing a quick clear here again. Right here is a existing box culvert. It's a two about 6 foot wide openings that have a center pier. Our plan is to remove that because that does clog and then impact, and I'm sorry, sir, what's your name? We always, the residents here I know can be impacted when this does clog, so our plan is to try to improve that and not have that happen. It's that box culvert's been there since the 1800s. It's actually owned by the Reading Trust Company, and our plan is to try to open that up so we don't have blockage at that point anymore. So
And that has been a problem.
Sure, I appreciate that, and I'm sure everything here is meant to be improvement, but I don't read this schematic very well,
Oh,
and I
sure,
didn't
yeah.
understand what the impacts were for my residents.
I absolutely, and that's why I'm here.
Good.
To be
Thank you.
honest, so we're being a little bit more transparent. Okay. Sir. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Klein.
What's the construction, do you have an idea what the construction duration is?
My hope is to be out here next year. This would be the first area we would address. We want to work from the north going south. Again, this is contingent on an Army Corps. Because there's so much property that we're actually trying to acquire from Cheltenham Township in their parks and the bird sanctuary that's further towards the south, our projects from a design perspective has been delayed up to, I think I'm on 7 months now. I've been sitting at 30%. So what I've done actually today was send a letter to the Army Corps requesting that, they've already met with me multiple times and they've stated there's no cost benefit impacts to their work. The goal is that letter gets approved, it can go to the FTA and we can progress to 60%. And at that point, all of these working sessions need to continue to happen with all 3 municipalities, Abington, Jenkintown Borough, and Cheltenham Township.
So this is dependent on other work that Army Corps is trying to coordinate through Cheltenham.
That's correct, sir.
And what do you think once the project starts?
Probably a year and a half, but a year and a half, not at that location, I'm saying for the total project. This,
How about at this location?
probably 4 months from start to finish, mobilization to when all equipment's off and we have full restoration of site.
For the manager and for the township engineer, we want to make sure we catalog what's going on here because this could be factored into the Wissahickon the Wissahickon TMPL study that's going on as far as the MS4 requirements and making sure that once this gets done, all 3 municipalities get credit for this work.
Part of the, excellent.
Are there other questions from members of the board? Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Commissioner Hecker. Mr. Stefanski, very pleased to see this in concept because Engineer Montgomery will back this up and Commissioner Speedman was pulled away by an emergency. We have dealt with some planned upstream bases with the Army Corps of Engineers, Greater Water, Coast Water, and they were, for lack of a better word, table those for the time being, and many times this concept of the rail corridor being used as the catchment in the base of the slope, the downstream flow of water was brought up. Very pleased to see this coming. Hopefully you'll work with Commissioner Leahy. I'm happy to be part of that. And Engineer Montgomery didn't want to chime in on any of that, but hopefully they could.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, speak up, Commissioner Sanchez.
Fortunately, I heard you, and yes, your statement was accurate.
That's me. Oh, all right. Sorry, I did hit the button. Anyway, we'll leave it at that, but thank you.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? All right. Mr. Stefanski, thank you for coming out tonight, and I think it might make sense to invite them back at a later date when the project is further along in the design and have an updated presentation.
Yes, when we progress with the Army Corps a little bit more, I'll reach out to Engineer Montgomery and we'll continue those discussions.
Excellent.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the time.
We appreciate yours. Thank you. So we'll now move on. The Public Works Committee has no unfinished business at this time, but there are two items of new business. The first is PW 01-061418, and here we are going to consider a motion to approve final payment in the amount of $65,728.73 to Almeida and Hudak Contractors, LLC, upon receipt of a satisfactory one-year maintenance bond. Are there comments or questions from members of the committee? Any comments or questions from fellow commissioners? Mr. Manfredi, anything you wish to add?
I have nothing. Ms. Montgomery, you? No. I have nothing. Do you have anything?
I just wanted to point out that the project work came in well under the original contract price, about $300,000 worth.
That's quite good. Thank you. Are there comments or questions from members of the audience?
Just one thing.
You have to come up to the podium, Mr. Bell.
Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. I'd appreciate if people would speak into the microphone so that I can hear. Maybe other people can have better hearing than me, but if you use the microphone, it'd be a lot easier. Thanks.
Thank you.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So I didn't see the documents online for this, but what is this project for? What is the payment for?
Do you care to answer that, Ms. Montgomery?
I don't have the detailed information, but this was phase one of the 2017 capital storm sewer projects that were done last year.
Yeah.
Okay, and they were done where, do you know?
I don't have the locations offhand.
Okay.
You know.
All right, thank you. If possible, when you write up the thing for the night, since a lot of people don't have their documents or don't have them with them because they're pretty voluminous, maybe you could put in when there's something, there's one on the agenda that I think was perfectly left out.
Okay.
Commissioner Hecker?
Yes, sir.
In the meeting binder that you have with the fiscal note, there is an item description that identifies each of what was accomplished in the 2017 Capital Phase 1 storm sewer that goes from clearing and grubbing all the way down to the basin at McKinley Firehouse. It gives line item costs as well as the sheet, which shows a total amount payable of the amount that you have in front of you. So that you do have that information
Yes,
in your binders.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Commissioner Klein.
So given the savings that because this came under the budget for the Phase 1, there are stipulations in the money that we received in the form of the bond that we have to use this for stormwater management, or how does that, will that be repurposed for other stormwater management projects?
I think that's a question for our finance officer, unless the manager can answer that.
I apologize, I was having a sidebar. What was the question?
The question as to whether this money that we had originally borrowed in a bond, whether this money could be used somewhere else, or does it have to continue being used for storm sewer?
Usually if we bond for stormwater management work, it has to stay within that realm. I can't remember if this was that. I know we also took notes out that were not restricted to bond, to just stormwater management. Is the amount that this came under, can that be repurposed for other stormwater projects or repurposed for other things, period?
I think with board approval, it can be repurposed.
Right. Outside of stormwater management.
With your approval.
Right, no, I got that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank
In
you.
both cases, though, with your approval.
Okay.
So we should consider that at some point.
What's that?
I think we should consider that at some point.
Right.
Yep. Okay. All right. If no further questions, can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And PW 2-061418, and here we will consider a motion to approve the no-cost transfer of funds associated with Supplement F, Agreement Number 06132-F with PennDOT for the Edge Hill Road and Tyson Avenue Reconstruction and Flood Control Project. And are there comments or questions from members of the committee? Any comments or questions from board members? Comments from staff? Any comments from members of the audience? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the portion of the meeting where we will entertain comments from the members of the audience about general matters of Public Works.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. I just wanted to thank Angelo and his teams for a really nice job fixing our roads, finally. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Here.
Riley?
Here.
Gillespie?
Here.
Tucker?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
All present and accounted for. Thank you. First, we will start with a motion to approve the minutes of the May 2nd, 2018 Administrative Code and Land Use Committee meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments or corrections to the minutes?
No, sir.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. We will start with ACL 01-06-1418, and this is whether to consider a motion approving the subdivision application by Haris Yaron, Jennifer Park, Scott Tatelman, and Jamie Fry, owners of the property located at 936 Morden Road and 1407 Mill Road, Meadowbrook, PA. And it looks like we have the applicant here, an attorney for the applicant.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is, it's not on. Good evening. My name is Julie Von Spreckelson. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Eastburn and Gray, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the co-applicants Haris Yaron and Jennifer Parkey, who are the legal owners of 936 Morden Road. Sitting next to me is the project engineer, Nick Rose from Protract Engineering. The co-applicants in this matter are Scott Tatelman and his wife Jamie Frey, who own the property located at 1407 Mill Road. What we are requesting is a recommendation from the committee to the full board to approve the minor subdivision application and the grant of the waivers that we have requested. This is basically just a lot line change. It's a land swap, if you will, between two abutting property owners whose properties are both located in the R1 zoning district, and they're both improved with single-family residences. And as you can see on the plan, both properties are very irregularly shaped. And I'll have Nick point out the property line for the Yaron property first, if you want to go ahead and do that. I would just point it out on the plan for them so they can see. I'm just trying to show you the irregular shape of the property. It's almost like I don't even know what you call that shape. I don't think there was one in geometry class. But it's very irregular shaped. And then the Tatelman property, which abuts it, is also very irregularly shaped with a very thin portion of the property leading all the way along Dale Road, such that the Yaron property does not have access as it exists today onto Dale Road. So what is being proposed is that the Yarons will be transferring 8,269 square feet of their property to the Mill Road property. And there's a number of benefits to the Mill Road property with regard to that. First and foremost, the Mill Road property is undersized. It's non-conforming as to lot area. Now, unfortunately, it's still going to remain non-conforming, but we're bringing it more into conformance with the ordinance by adding that portion of the Yaron property to the Tatelman property. Additionally, it'll make the shape of the properties both more regular. you can see that the Titleman property will be going from a triangular shape to more of a rectangular shape. And then finally, there's some existing encroachments on the Huron property by the Titleman property, and that includes a shed and a portion of the driveway. So that was really the genesis of why they wanted to do this land swap. And it really does benefit both properties, because the benefit to the Mill Road property, the Morden Road property, would be that they're obtaining 3,551 square feet of the Titleman property, and a portion of that does abut onto Dale Road. So it would provide access for the Huron property to Dale Road, which they do not have at this time. We have requested a number of waivers. I was not going to run through them. They're pretty standard, I believe, for lot line changes of this minor magnitude, and I can go through them if you'd like me to. But I will note that the zoning officer's review letter, which is dated May 15, 2018, that's all will comply responses. They're either just regular comments, or all our responses to that letter are will comply. The County Planning Commission also reviewed this minor subdivision plan, and they issued a letter on May 22nd. And there was really only one substantive comment, and there was a recommendation by the planner, Mike Narkowicz. He thought maybe there should be some sidewalk on Morden Road, but he did attend the Township Planning Commission meeting, and he retracted that recommendation because he realizes that Morden Road is really just a little country kind of lane, and there's no sidewalk on the opposite side of Morden Road. And where you see the land swap itself is nowhere near Morden Road. It's Dale Road and Mill Road. So with that, we're basically requesting a recommendation for approval of the minor subdivision application and the grant of the waivers. And we're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Von Spreckelsen. And this, let me go to questions with that, but I do want to hear from I think it's Commissioner Klein's the ward commissioner on the sidewalk issue, if that's...
The committee first, that's fine.
Right.
Actually, I was going to ask, where are the sidewalks right now? There's nothing on Morden. Is there something on Mill Road?
I don't believe there's any, I don't believe there's any sidewalks on any of the three streets.
Okay.
The full extent of Mill Road doesn't have a single sidewalk. The entire road.
Any other commissioners on the committee? Commissioner Klein.
So you said that the larger of the two properties is looking to get frontage on Dale Road. What's the purpose of getting the frontage other than the land swap, other than creating more regular shaped properties?
You can actually see on the plan, there's a little driveway that was originally built from the residence down to Dale Road, which actually had to cross a small piece of the Titleman property. So by taking that oddly shaped piece, they will now have frontage. In the meantime, they weren't actually able to use that drive because there was the issue of them crossing another property. Now they will be able to just cross directly onto it.
Is there any future construction and subdivision planned for this property? And is there, in the area, it shows a retaining wall, and then the topography on there seems to indicate some slope of, that's a little bit more on the steep side. Do you have an idea of what that slope percentage is in that area?
I don't know the exact slope of any of that. You're right, there are some areas that are fairly steeply sloped. There's some walls that additionally would need to be evaluated if somebody was looking to subdivide it in the future. But there are no plans for that now.
And I think there's two drainage ways, one that goes behind Scott's property. And then I believe there's one that runs underneath the bridge on Mill Road.
Well, the tributary to the Meadowbrook actually crosses Dale Road right about here, and then just winds down through what will then now be mostly through the Titleman property, curves around here, and then goes out. I think that's...
Wait, hold on a second.
I think that's the only significant waterway in here. There are smaller swales here and there, but that's the only significant one.
Okay. Has that been has that been looked at as far as any kind of stream bank work that needs to be done in that area?
Not on the private property that I'm aware of. It was not on any lists that I've seen.
So nothing you think that's required, or it's something that's going to have to be done at some point?
There was nothing that was targeted at this point.
Okay.
Of course, with most streams, I think eventually something ends up needing to be done, or they migrate.
Okay. As far as the sidewalks are concerned, there are sidewalks on Morden Road. Once you get past, well, actually, once you get up to the first property coming from Mill Road, the first property on Warner has sidewalks. They stop at either the triangular property to the bottom of the page, or that is that corner property.
I think it may be somewhere up here.
Where is the corner of Warner Road? Is that the corner?
Let's show you on here.
Is that triangular property on the bottom of the page?
This triangular property here is right here on the location map, and here's Warner right here. So basically, Warner is essentially somewhere around here. You can see that.
So that property, that triangular property, is actually the corner property on Morden, on Warner and Morden.
It's close. I can't say for sure that it has frontage on Warner, but it's very close.
Okay. I would like to see where the sidewalks turn from Warner Road. There has been discussions about putting sidewalks in some location here to connect to the Meadowbrook train station from the neighborhood of that whole area where Warner, Bryant, Stephen, Lenore, that whole area has sidewalks all the way up from Warner Road to, I believe, well, for a certain portion of Morden Road going up towards Huntington Pike also has sidewalks. So I would like to see where the corner of Warner Road is and where the current sidewalks stop before that waiver is granted.
Okay, we'll investigate that and we'll let you know.
Okay.
I can answer that if you'd like an answer.
No, thank you. Commissioner Klein, were you finished with your?
Yes.
Any other commissioners? So I would make a motion that to recommend the subdivision application subject to the answering of that question at the board meeting and the potential application or withdrawal of the waiver for the sidewalk on Morden Road, and I so move.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments from the audience?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, so that's my neighborhood. So what you have is the corner property on Warner Road wraps around and has a sidewalk. There's only one other property there before this subject property that has no sidewalk. And then there is the property after that, at the very corner of Mill, that has no sidewalk. On the other end, going all the way through to the hospital, which is also a well-used route, there's only one property on that side of the street. So altogether, there are literally 3 properties that have no sidewalks. So I was glad to hear Commissioner Klein, because we had been begging him for sidewalks. The train is very well used by our neighborhood, and that's a very dangerous section. So thank you for withdrawing it.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
If I just may, I'm just a little confused. We haven't withdrawn the waiver as of yet. We still have the waiver request as of this time. What we said that we would do is investigate it and determine exactly where the sidewalk is located at this time.
Right, and we're recommending that investigation take place, but we're passing it along with the recommendation to approve, subject to the potential waiver, I guess.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have another question. I'm the other house here.
Sure.
If you've had these discussions about potentially putting a sidewalk to the Meadowbrook station, are you talking about going down Mill Road, like towards Valley and coming back? Or are you planning on going across Mill Road, up Coates, and down Lindley? I mean, it's like you got to go a mile to go a quarter of a mile, and that's a lot of sidewalk. I'm just wondering what the plan was or what you guys have been discussing. Because that impacts a lot of houses on the other side of Mill, too.
I would defer to Commissioner Klein for the specific plan, but I think just as a general theme with any subdivision application and the requirement for sidewalks, we're trying to make up for years of this same situation where there's sidewalk gaps and the waiver has been granted and we have these piecemeal parts. So if we can achieve a spot that makes a better connection, we can build on that in the future, because it's ultimately, the homeowner's responsibility, or we have to find money in a grant, which is also taxpayer money, to put in sidewalks like that. So I don't know about this specific plan here, Stephen, if you want to talk to that, or if they were just trying to find a way, but.
About, I don't even know now, might be about 6 years ago, we sent out letters to all the properties from Warner Road to Meadowbrook train station, going down Morden, making a right on Mill Road, taking us to Meadowbrook train station to find out if we had any kind of support for putting in sidewalks, because the bottom line is, if we put sidewalks in, regardless of whether the sidewalks are assessed or not, and we could show that there's a pedestrian issue, the property owners are going to have to take care of and maintenance of those sidewalks once they're put in. I think I got 2 people that were potentially interested, and the rest were absolutely no. And that's when it kind of died out. But at the same time, there's still the need, as the previous speaker had talked about, that there are quite a few people that I've heard from that do take the train at Meadowbrook train station, and it is not an easy walk from that neighborhood to the Meadowbrook train station. So if there's an opportunity to expand the pedestrian network to the Meadowbrook train station, I'm looking at every opportunity I can get to do that. So.
I understand the desire to do so. It's just that, along Mill Road there, you got some pretty significant grading right off of the road, which would end up basically hardscaping a dozen houses just to be able to fit a sidewalk on there. So, to be honest with you, living right there and having walked to that train station a bunch of times, because sometimes it's just nice out and you want to do it, if there's a way to build something along the creek instead and knock a quarter of a mile off the walk, that would be something that would be interesting, but.
Unfortunately, most of that goes through private property.
Yeah. No,
we have potential control of the right of way, but we don't have control of the creek in order to put in sidewalks and public improvements along those lines. We can improve the creek bed if we needed to, but we can't go in and put sidewalks along the creek and through private property. Our easements don't allow for that.
No, I understand. It's just a shame that it's not an option.
I'm sorry.
And can I just ask a question? Because when I was on Google Earth and looking at this, I didn't see any sidewalks on Morden Road at all. So across the street or down to the abutting parcels. So the sidewalk that we would have to put in would be just along the property line here, so it would be a sidewalk going nowhere.
For now.
Correct. But it would just be one small portion of this entire roadway that would have sidewalk.
For now.
Yeah, there's a portion of sidewalk at Morden and Warner, just down to the bottom of the page.
Where?
It goes up Morden, it's at the intersection of Morden and Warner, turns up and starts to run up towards Mill Road. It stops at that neighboring property owner's driveway.
We'd have to I'm going to go out there and take a look.
Yeah.
But yes,
Sure.
the answer to your question is you are correct. However, as Commissioner Sanchez said before, we don't want to pass up any opportunities that give us the possibility of connecting to additional pedestrian walkways, safe pedestrian walkways. And given, if this was in the middle of a neighborhood but you're only one property away from picking up sidewalks. And it may be the end point, but at some point, something else might change. So, right now, I have no opportunity. Unless the township just goes ahead and does it and assesses the properties.
Okay. It's just a very, very narrow road, from what I've seen.
You call it a country road, it's not a country road, it is heavily traveled.
I was your zoning officer, I believe, used that term.
Well, he can call it whatever he wants to, but Morden Road is a heavily traveled road.
I'm just looking at the safety aspect of it, of having one portion of a roadway that has sidewalk on it.
And so am I.
So I just want to clarify, just that we're all on the same page. I joined Commissioner Sanchez and also Commissioner Klein's concerns about the sidewalks. And we may be passing this along at the moment, but it is conditional upon the further evaluation of the sidewalks, because pedestrian safety and making sure the neighbors and the residents are taken care of in terms of having safe, because I know Morton Road as well, it's adjacent to my ward. I just want to make sure you understand that this is conditional based upon what we further see upon your recommendations and obviously Commissioner Klein's approval with respect to sidewalks. So we may be passing this along, but it is conditional, and I want you to understand that you have to come back to us and understand that there's going to be concern about the sidewalks for pedestrian safety.
Understood.
Thank you, Commissioner Bresci. Commissioner Gillespie.
Well, my concern is, I think we're just transferring some property. We're not constructing anything, correct?
That's correct.
I could see if there was new construction where they decide to subdivide it, and then I say, okay, like we've talked about in the past, but we're talking, this person is transferring the property to this person, no construction. I'm just not quite sure why this issue is coming up.
Well, with all due respect to the applicant, I mean, it could be somebody in the future decides to construct and...
And then that's when we would go into it.
Well, it depends. If they construct something and we've lost the opportunity on the waiver because we
Well, don't
might
they
not...
have to come to us, though?
Not necessarily.
Well, they have to come to us to prove all their plans, and if we don't like them, and we say, where's the sidewalk?
It's already been subdivided. If they build a compliant project on it,
Well, this isn't subdividing.
this is a subdivision application.
Well, it's a small,
lot line
can they,
change, but
it's a lot line.
This lot is grossly oversized, so if they were to come back in to subdivide it further, then it would be addressed at that time. If they
That's
were
what I
planning
meant.
construction of another residence, that's correct.
You bet. Well, then, I beg to differ with everyone. I mean, this is a minor subdivision application, whether it's a lot line relocation. So this is the opportunity, if we were, that the code impacts sidewalks. I mean, we could ask for sidewalks on every side of the property, frankly, so we like sidewalks. We're trying to build pedestrian and walkability here, you know, we're trying to work with you guys on this and not, you know, we'll take a look at it.
And we absolutely understand that, and we understand the township's concern about safety, but I do have some concerns. I'm not an expert on safety of having just one property have a portion of a sidewalk and no other properties have it.
Right.
So that's partially my concern, and there's a cost associated, obviously, with it to the applicant.
I hear that concern, and we've heard the sidewalk to nowhere, but that started somewhere. If we had put the sidewalk on every property from the start, we'd have an entire network of sidewalks.
And I would have one other question, and maybe the solicitor can help with this. If there was to be an idea that this waiver or a portion of this waiver was to be allowed through this lot line change, that there'd be a condition on the plan that if any other further subdivisions of this property, obviously Scott's property would not be able to be subdivided, that sidewalks would be put in and a waiver would not be granted.
Understood.
I mean, that would be something, so I would discuss that with
consider,
your,
yeah,
I would
absolutely.
discuss that with your client and
Absolutely.
have an answer coming back to the board meeting, that waiver will not be entertained upon, and that would be part of the recorded plan. And that would be something I'd like the solicitor and the engineer to look into as to whether that could be enforced. So.
Absolutely.
My last comment,
Can you approach the microphone, sir, just so we can get it? It's being video recorded, so we want to...
Sure. There's been a lot of hypotheticals thrown around about further subdivision, but sitting on my back porch and looking at their property every day, if there was any subdivision for building or anything, it would end up looking like the entrance to NORAD.
Right.
Okay, so the likelihood that anything would be developed on that rocky hillside is probably 0%.
Right.
So I just want to make sure everybody understands that.
Totally understand.
And I understand her hypothetical. Yeah, what, you know, this can happen or that can happen, but it's not going to happen.
Okay. We thank you. Thank you for that comment. So, another comment from the audience.
Yes.
Sir, if you could put your name and
My name
address.
is John Bennett. I live at 1388 Warner Road. I just wanted to make sure that there's no impact with the houses on the adjoining properties along Warner Road and their existing home values. with regard to selling any of these properties? In other words, there wouldn't be any changes with,
Well, nothing physical is proposed at all, so nobody would view anything differently if they were looking through the neighborhood to look at the values of home. Nothing would appear at all different, it's just a paper line that's changing.
yeah, okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the audience or commissioners?
A lot of noise going on.
Maybe we should wait to see who it is.
Someone's phoning in a question. You've already spoken on this
I
item?
have, I only used 1 minute of my 3. Can I just?
It doesn't work that way.
Let me just say one thing, okay, because it's relevant to this. So, and these are my neighbors, so I actually, that other solution was a nice solution, that if they subdivide and they build something. But the other thing is that I will say that is an incredibly dangerous road, and I often use their driveway because it's the only place that you can get off the road. It's almost all sloped, and it's difficult to just step off of the road. And so I use their driveway just to wait until there's no cars coming and then try and dash up to the next piece of sidewalk. So it actually would be a very good blessing. And I hate to say that because they're my neighbors, but by the same token, that is something that we've been asking for a long time, to figure out how to get sidewalks on one side or the other. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. And next, we have ACL 2-06-1418. This is, consider a motion approving the land development application for a 3-lot subdivision and land development by Mr. Patrick Deacon, Popper and Deacon Incorporated at 1768 Kimball Avenue, Willow Grove, PA. See Mr. Deacon here and others, if the applicant wants to give us a little summary of what's going on. And
Certainly. Good evening, I'm Ed Shadrow with Eastern Shadrow Associates. I have the applicant Pat Deacon with here with me tonight. This is for the subdivision of 1768 Kimball Avenue. This is a 3-lot subdivision. Lot 1 will contain the existing dwelling, and lots 2 and 3 will become proposed building lots. Public improvements include road widening, concrete curb, and concrete sidewalk, along with the addition of a few trees to supplement the street trees already in place. We have a review letter from the township, which pretty much is all will comply, and we're asking for a few waivers which were recommended approval by the Planning Commission at our last meeting.
And no sidewalk waiver on this one?
No sidewalk waiver.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments or questions from commissioners on the committee? Seeing none. Any other? Commissioner Myers, I believe this is your
Thank you.
ward.
And I'm sorry that I can't see you. I apologize that I was not at the Planning Commission, so I do have a couple of questions. And thank you for the sidewalks, because per the discussion before, there are sidewalks to nowhere, but that's fine if you're okay with that. You're showing, and I'm not the drawing that you have up, but on the drawing that we have that show the 2 new homes.
Yes.
Proposed dwellings.
Yeah, proposed dwellings.
I'm sorry?
Proposed dwellings.
The 2 proposed dwellings.
For the proposed dwellings, right. Are you making all 3 driveways off of Kimball?
Yes, all 3 driveways will be off of Kimball. Windsor Avenue will not have access.
Okay, because that was recommended by in the Planning Commission's letter, the County Planning Commission, not our Planning Commission. Okay, so you're going to do all 3 driveways, you're widening the road. How are you doing, and you do know, and I know you know this, it's one way. So how are you widening that road? Obviously, you're taking some of your property?
Yeah, some of our property. It's not very much. I'm going to bring it out to the township requirement of 15 feet from center line with the face of curb.
Okay. In our packet, you show two different sample homes, one with a two-car garage and one with a one-car garage. Are you doing one of each? What are you proposing?
You want to speak to that?
So the lot to the rear is a much larger lot. It's over 17,000 square feet, and what's required is 7,500 square feet. So because the body of the building envelope, or the proposed building envelope, is much wider, that illustration is just to demonstrate that a larger home could fit on there, wide enough to accommodate a two-car garage. So it's just an illustration.
Okay, but is that, if...
That would be my intention. I would think
Okay.
the lot's very nice
But
size.
the other home, the other new home, would not be wide enough for a two-car garage, is that correct?
I don't want to say it's completely impossible, but very unlikely.
Right.
Because...
Well, here's my concern, that there is no parking on Kimball, there's no room for parking, so that these homes, because this property obviously had a huge driveway
Sure.
and plenty of parking on its own property. Now we're putting 3 homes there with many more cars total, and there is no parking on Kimball Avenue. And even when you try to park on Kimball Avenue, you're halfway into the street.
So
Because it was a country road at one time.
Certainly. So Abington Township has an ordinance that requires us to provide a number of off-street parkings regardless of the size. So we will meet those requirements.
Okay. And I saw that you are putting in trees to replace whatever you're taking out.
Correct.
Whatever the ratio is.
The supplement where we already have it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Hecker.
Helps when I push the green button. Thank you. So I wanted to ask a question about the County Planning Commission's review. They had made a couple of recommendations. The one I was most interested in was under the other category, under access, where they were recommending that the proposed home closest to Windsor Avenue take access from the dead end of the street so that the longer driveway to Kimball Avenue is not needed. And I was wondering if there had been any discussion among yourselves about that.
I think there was some from the residences, they didn't want it. Yeah.
My understanding was that at one point, Windsor was a paper street, was supposed to go through, and has since been vacated. So I don't believe, we would only have access to half of Windsor Road, and I just know that the impression I was under that the whole neighborhood was kind of against that happening to begin with. So we felt this would be enough disturbance and less conflict for everybody to bring it out that way. And the fact that, like I said, it's already been vacated, and we don't enjoy both sides of what would have been
that road. Okay.
A paper street.
Does that make sense to you?
That's my understanding.
Absolutely, that's, it was not the right recommendation.
Got it.
Because now the folks on Windsor, they think that they live, well, not a cul-de-sac, but...
But close enough to it,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think that would be very upsetting to them.
We don't want to do that.
Right.
Thank you.
Any other? Commissioner Klein.
So one other thing that was also brought up, and what I remember from drafting of the zoning ordinance, there are infill development regulations within this district. Can you explain how this, I see there was a waiver for architectural plans, and I'm not sure whether that waiver should be granted, especially since there are some requirements for the architecture to match some of the infill regulations. So can you speak to that, please?
Yes, so I guess what my intention was, we don't know what the house will look like, but we will respect whatever the ordinance is. My understanding is there's an offset between the front of the home and the garage. So whatever that is, we will meet, but I didn't want to design homes that someone else may want something different, and then I would have to scrap the plan. So no matter what plan is ultimately the one that we're going to build, they will comply to that ordinance. But I didn't want to have to be held to building this particular
Specific
home
model.
when I could have a buyer that would want something completely different. So that was, I wasn't trying to evade it. I just, I'm not ready to say exactly what house it's going to be because I don't know yet.
This is a custom home situation. They choose the
It
design.
could potentially be.
Sorry, Commissioner Klein.
So that's all fine and good, but there are requirements within the infill development regulations that need to be met that relate to the frontage of the property, wall-to-window ratios. There are also the height of the building, and I think most of this neighborhood is one-story houses, and you're showing a house that's primarily vertical, except for the garage. So that would be my concern, is that the infill development regulations were put in for spot lots so that you don't drive down a street and then all of a sudden you have a house that looks completely out of sorts with the rest of the neighborhood. And that would like to make sure that somehow, somewhere along the process, those regulations are met and that there is not a waiver for that.
Well, since it's kind of new to me, I don't know that I don't think I have the ability to ignore it and then get a building permit. Is that correct? I'm not trying to be a smart guy.
No,
I guess that would have to ultimately be addressed at the
I
building
understand
permit
what you said
stage.
before about you're not sure exactly
Yeah.
what you're going to build there. I'm just, the pictures of the houses that you've built previously, and I've known Pat for a long time.
Yeah.
So I know you build nice stuff. So I'm not concerned about that. I just want to make sure that the intent of the ordinance was to make sure that infill properties, these spot lots they pick up in a lot of these neighborhoods, especially on the western part of the township, have some semblance of vernacular with the rest of the neighborhood and don't just stick out, which has been some of the cases in the past. So I just want to make sure that that's something that is going to be evaluated at some point in compliance with the zoning ordinance.
Sure, so we'll work with whoever would help us understand how that has to be when the house is designed.
Right, as you know, and after the subdivision stage, we go to the building permit stage, and we need to submit individual
Understand.
plot plans. So that would be probably addressed then.
And I have one last question. I don't know if I saw the stormwater management stuff. Is the stormwater management all on site?
No, they're
None of it's
individual
in
units.
public- None of it's in public right-of-ways?
No, sir.
No, they're all individual.
Thank you.
Ms. Montgomery.
Yeah, and just to address Commissioner Klein's concern, that was actually brought up during our internal staff review, so they will be held to those standards.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for clarifying all that. Any other commissioners? Appears nothing further from the applicant. Well, I would move that we approve the land development application for the three-lot subdivision and land development by Mr. Patrick Deacon, Popper and Deacon Incorporated at 1768 Kimball Avenue, Willow Grove, PA. And I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments from the audience? Seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Gentlemen. Yep. Finally, we have ACL 04-06-1418. This is consider authorizing the Solicitor's Office to draft and advertise an ordinance creating a Board of Code Appeals consistent with Section 501C of the Act, 35 PS 7210.501C, Uniform Construction Code. Mr. Manfredi, are you describing this, or is this Solicitor Clark?
Well, very simply, as you know, the township is required to have a Board of Code Appeals in case a situation arises where there's an applicant who wants to appeal a provision of the building codes. We've adjusted the menu very slightly this evening just to make sure that the fire side and the correction is in here, and that'll all be addressed in the ordinance. So in short, we really need to have a Board Code of Appeals under UCC, and really the only question I would have would be to the solicitor if he had any recommendations on composition, but I think he can handle that in his recommended ordinance. So this is simply authorizing a solicitor to draft an ordinance as required under the law so this Board of Appeals can exist.
Great. And so we're not advertising anything tonight because we haven't seen anything.
This is
So
just
it's
authorizing it. I just
authorizing.
didn't know if there was any questions that the solicitor would want to answer, or if you had any discussion you want to have about composition. Other than that, it would just be a motion to authorize. And then you could discuss it at the first ordinance draft.
Fair enough. Thank you. Any comments from commissioners on the committee?
Just one.
Commissioner Thompson.
I just want to verify, so this is under IBC 2009, but we're going to be adopting IBC 2015 in October, so this will carry forward?
Yes, it will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Klein.
So I've been in front of 2 code review boards in two other municipalities, and both have been a 5-member board.
The composition of the board is mandated by the statute.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
And is it 5?
I believe it is.
Okay, good, then they're doing it right.
Is there any makeup differential, just X number of architects, X number of other types of contracts?
I think we'll take a look, we'll have that all prepared for you in the ordinance. I think there is some latitude as to who's on the board, but they do specifically indicate, like you're saying, an architect, an engineer, so you have to have that composition. If you have more than one, I don't think that's a problem, but.
What's the scope of review of such a board?
I'm not sure, Mr. Brodsky.
It's,
Yeah, we could,
I mean, just out of experience, yeah, if you, as an architect, if you put in a design set of drawings and the municipality you're working in comes back with a differing opinion as to how you're achieving the provisions in the building code, then you can appeal that decision if you have a different interpretation. It's very much like going to the zoning hearing board. If you have, I mean, there's no variance request or anything like a zoning hearing board, but if you have the code in some cases is not 100% clear, and if the interpretation at the municipality, you have a difference of opinion or have some other justification for what you're doing on the project, you can go in front of this code review board and state your case and get a ruling one way or the other.
So my question is, I understand it's an appellate court of sorts or an appellate process, but what is their scope of review? Do you know?
The scope of review is the building code.
What I'm saying is, do they get a fresh start? Is it de novo?
I'm sorry, do
Is
they
it
get
a
a
fresh
what?
start, or is it brand new, you try the case over again? What is it?
I think they just get to...
Do they get to review what's already been done?
When you put in your permit application, you'll get comments back, especially if there's a rejection. You'll have the ability to challenge the rejection.
Mr. Brodsky, I think the short answer to your question is the Uniform Construction Code has very specific provisions. If an applicant is being held to a provision by the reviewing agent and they want to appeal that review or decision, this board would have that scope. The scope of review would be to the UCC and the specific item that they're addressing.
Any other comments from commissioners? All right. I'll make a motion that we authorize the solicitor to draft the ordinance consistent with law. And I so move.
Seconded.
Been moved and seconded. We'll take comments from the audience.
Can you tell me, please, where I'd find that law? Where would I find that law? That requires a review board to be set up?
Well, I'm sorry, the citation is there, 35 PS 7210.501.
Okay, so...
Pennsylvania statutes.
Yeah, so my concern here is, I have a bazillion documents, as you all know, on at least one project, more actually, where the code was very much at issue, and only very highly trained people really understood what the entire code was about. So do we have people on these boards that are going to be fully trained as the same way that a building code official is trained in the UCC?
Are your comments completed?
Well, I'm asking if I can get an answer to that question. You have the option to do it. You can say, no, I prefer not to answer your question, Ms.
Okay,
Lehman.
we're going to form the committee consistent with law.
What's that?
We're going to form the committee consistent with the statute.
Okay, so the statute, to your knowledge, doesn't require somebody to actually take the same kind of training that a building code official takes in that law. I mean, I would hope there was a level of training somewhere. Do you happen to know if there's a level of training in that law?
Off the top of my head, that's why we're having the lawyer for the township draft the statute,
Okay.
consistent with law.
Okay. Now, I mean, I find this highly concerning, and especially in conjunction, as you know, I tried for a great long time to find the issue on the firewalls. And though I finally did get that issue, which was one line that was added in, it was very clear that the way that line was added in could be something that would be challenged by a developer. Okay, and I wasn't sure whether the intention was to say, well, if we go to the labor and industry and ask for this change, they might turn us down, therefore we're just going to write this sentence in, or whether the intent was, we'll just write this sentence in, and that gives us the leeway to challenge it, that it's not very strong, and here's how it actually should be interpreted. So that's a huge issue, because the issue with what I call the firewalls was actually whether or not buildings continually had to be constructed with non-combustible materials, which you heard your own fire marshal say was
See, I don't like when you use
very
the
much-
phrases "when you heard" and "as you know," and it's a lot of innuendo. So if you could just state your facts and move on, or state your opinions.
You did hear it. You pretty much all were here, and this board did hear the fire marshal testify that the health, safety, and welfare of the residents in the township would be affected. So I don't think
So
that
say
should be a
you.
problem for me to say that he testified before this entire board.
In your opinion.
And it really, this really concerns me, okay? And we have somebody who's sitting on 5 other boards, did he say, of these particular appeal boards, who violated many of the UCC code issues that were there. So it's a huge concern.
Thank you for your opinion. Any other comments from the audience? So all those in favor? Aye. The motion carries. We will now take public comment on matters of administrative code and land use.
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. And the concerns that I have in the code enforcement area, one concern just came up tonight again, and came up a great number of times right after the storm that we just had. Commissioner Spiegelman and Commissioner Hecker at one point were going to pursue trying to get a tree ordinance of some sort. And my understanding is that didn't pan out. We weren't able to get a tree ordinance where you have a dying tree and it might fall on somebody's house. And we wanted, but what we do have, I think what everybody has learned since then that has been involved in this, is that you have to write a certified letter to your neighbor if you see a tree that looks like it's in bad shape. And then if it falls on your house, the neighbor will have some responsibility. Otherwise, everything that's on your property will be your responsibility. That's how I understand it. Not a lawyer, not an insurance agent, but that's how I understand it. I would appreciate that the township would verify if anything can be done code or resolution-wise, would take it on themselves, please, to notify everybody in Abington that this is the case and that they should look to their trees. It may have been done at one time, but needs to be done periodically to keep neighbors aware. The other thing is and would you also put out the property maintenance code? Because very clear, I know some commissioners are watching online as they see residents trying to understand what's the code, what's allowed, what's not allowed. And please put that out so that they're clear on that. The code department is not doing their job on properties that are vacant and blighted. Period, they are not. I sat in a vacant property meeting, and I suggested that there were two suggestions. One is the code person that we pay to be in that meeting one time didn't have the code. I asked him to get it. He said no, it was right behind him, in the room right behind him. He didn't know it. He wasn't going to get the code. And the other people in that room, including a commissioner, also allowed that to happen. The other day, the last vacant property meeting, I asked, would they please, because he didn't know the history of a property that we'd been working with for over a year now. And I asked, would he please get a sheet for each property, and then when he needed to tell them what the next deal was, he only had to look at his sheet. And it also was the main problem that was missing. I know I'm finishing up right now.
Thank you.
Okay?
Just-
And I'm finishing
You've
up
heard
right
enough.
now.
I mean-
But I want to say, not only did he not want to do that, but Commissioner Schreiber also said,
I know you want to say, but
residents...
your time has expired, so
Yes,
thank you. Please take your seat.
Residents are not in charge of making the systems.
Okay.
That's what she told
Thank you
me.
for your comments.
That has to change.
Now 30
Residents
seconds
need to
over.
be able to help.
I let you go twice the one time, and now you're going to do this? I mean, come on.
What I'm asking...
Okay, please, sit down.
I will sit down, but I'm asking you to allow anything that
Asking
will
you
make
to
the
sit down,
township
please.
better.
Please.
Anything that will make it
Please.
better.
Any other comments from the audience? Seeing none, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved, seconded. We're adjourned.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting of June 6, 2018, and can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Schreiber?
Here.
Lucido?
Here.
Ralston?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Bain?
Here.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 2nd, 2018 Public Safety Committee meeting?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, all those approving, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the minutes have been approved. And now I'd like to call on our Chief of Police, Pat Malloy, to give his report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just three quick announcements, and good evening, Commissioners. Back on Police Memorial Week in May, I just want to commend Deputy Chief Kelly Warner and Sergeant Joe Blythe. For the first time ever, our Honor Guard went down to Police Memorial Week, where they inscribed the name of Constable O'Brien, who was killed in Ardsley back in 1904, and basically the reason why we founded the Abington Township Police Department. Deputy Chief Warner took her own time to ride down there on the Unity Tour, or at least escort the Unity Tour down there, and it made us, the department, very proud. Second announcement is we had a real nice arrest last Thursday night into Friday at 3:25 in the morning. Also in Ardsley, Commissioner Sabahone, it was 600 block of Cricket Avenue, where the residents left their door unlocked and they left their keys in the console. This was a nice job by Cheltenham Police picking up the car. They locked up 4 individuals, and they were able to clear at least 6 or 7 theft for motor vehicle jobs, one in Elkins Park, one in Jenkintown, and the other in Ardsley. So these individuals are coming up from Philadelphia. They see these soft targets, so I just would like you to remind your constituents, and I'm reminding the residents here, 99% of these vehicles who are broken into, they're all unlocked vehicles, and in some cases, they go into the homes. So just a reminder with the warm weather to please lock your vehicles. And the final announcement is regarding our DUI task force. Sergeant Joe Blythe runs that for a number of different departments. They will have roving patrols out there on the weekends in Upper Dublin, Cheltenham, Abington, and there'll be DUI checkpoints set up. Just please encourage family and friends, especially this time of year with graduation parties and other things going on, to take advantage of the ride assists and designated drivers, because to show up on these accidents knowing that they can be avoided is just a terrible thing. So there are my 3 announcements for tonight.
Commissioner Sanchez. Commissioner Sanchez.
Thank you, Commissioner
make that mistake again. Thank you, Commissioner Shriver. Chief and Deputy Chief, I happened to be at the county courthouse about last week and looked at the memorial. There's a law enforcement memorial similar to those killed in the line of duty, and I noticed that the constable was not on that one, from 1904, or I thought I noticed that. Is there any plan to maybe get that inscription on that memorial, or is there some reason that's not?
Yeah, that was a good point, Commissioner. We started with we wanted to start in DC and then work our way backwards. I'm only kidding, but no, we are going to look into that. I wasn't
great.
aware of that.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Saccone?
Just want to ask the chief something. Is that the one that they captured them in the Wawa and Limekiln Pike?
That's correct.
Like 4 o'clock in the morning?
That is correct.
Okay.
And I did, Chief of Cheltenham Township, we did call to commend them for their efforts there. It was a great job. 2 juveniles and 2 18-year-olds were locked up.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Thank you very much for your report. And I also want to point out that our Fire Chief, John Rohr, is here, and Second Alarmist Rich Garrett are waving from the audience. Any comments, gentlemen? Thank you. All righty, so we're going to start with our formal agenda as we have no unfinished business this evening. So for new business, first agenda item is PS 01061418. And although this says consider a motion, I think we can just make it as a motion to promote Officer Troy Senni to the rank of probationary sergeant effective June 15th, 2018, provided he successfully completes the remaining portions of the promotional process, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from commissioners, staff, audience? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS 02061418, again, I'm going to just make this as a motion, appointing Aaron Houston from the Certified Civil Service Eligibility List to the position of probationary police officer, provided he successfully completes the background, physical, and psychological tests and all entry requirements of the Municipal Police Officers Education and Training Commission for Act 120 training. Appointment will be effective June 25th, 2018, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from commissioners? Staff, did you want to say anything about? No? Yeah.
Yeah, this individual grew up in Abington, attended Abington high schools, lives in the border between Ardsley and Glenside, and served in U.S. Marines. And by all counts, after the interview process, we've heard nothing but good things. We're very proud to appoint Aaron as our next officer.
Thank you. Any other staff or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. PS 03061418, consider approving and recommending the adoption of Resolution 2018-026, a resolution of the Township of Abington, County of Montgomery, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, establishing a uniform policy and procedure for considering certain traffic regulations and the installing of proper signs and markings. So that's for consideration. Are there any comments from commissioners? No? Staff, any comments?
I did have one comment.
Commissioner Klein.
On number 4B, Township Manager may schedule the request for consideration at a public meeting for the Board of Commissioners to authorize experimental regulations in accordance with Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, subsection 156-4. Is that of the Abington Code?
Yes.
Okay. I guess we can look that up, or is there anything, well, it says subsection, so I can look that up in the code.
Yeah, and I don't have it in front of me, but it's very specific.
I just, it wasn't
And
sure.
it-
It looked like it was from the Abington Code
It
book,
is.
the chapter numbers. I just wanted to make sure that's where I looked for it.
It is, and one of the questions that Solicitor Clark had, is it enforceable during that experimental time? And the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from any other commissioners? Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. I'd like to also address that 90-day period. How exactly does that work? Who makes, at the end of the 90 days, who makes the determination if this improvement, if it's an improvement, stays or goes?
If the experimental period is 90 days, it would depend on the motion. So if you made a motion, in my opinion, that said it had to come back to the commissioners at the end of the 90 days for a review, you could do that. Or if it's 90 days experimental, it could stay there. It really depends. I would think at some point within that 90 days, it would have to be evaluated as to whether or not the experimental regulation made sense. And if it made sense, you could make it permanent. What I would try to do, and the chief and I will have to discuss this mechanically, would be to tie it into the quarterly updates to the ordinances. So let's say that stop signs go into a location that a commissioner wants them to go into, and in that 90 days, it has been proven that the intersection is not less safe, then we could roll it into the ordinance and make it permanent. You know how we have the ordinance on here this evening, where we approve quarterly all of those things that aren't emergencies? So at the end of the 90 days, that experimental can become part of the next ordinance to make it permanent.
But at the end of the 90 days, there would be some kind of an evaluation or decision. That's, for example, I mean, the whole purpose is to make everything safer, everything traffic safer. Whether it's a four-way stop sign, whatever it is, it's to make it safer. And if, even before, at the end of the 90 days, that clearly whatever this change was, did not make it safer, which would mean maybe an increase in accidents, something, if there was some kind of evidence that it's not safer.
Then it would not go forward. The experiment would then end. Because you only have 90 days. So let's take each scenario.
But here's my question.
Let's take each scenario.
Okay.
So there's an ordinance next week that gets adopted, it goes into place. Let's say at the next meeting there are, and I will be asking the commissioners for, and I know there are many of you have stop signs in your locations, some that traffic safety has reviewed and denied, and some that may not have been yet vetted. So if two commissioners say, you know, I'd like to look at stop signs at these intersections, it goes through this process, which in essence is the current process. All we're doing is adding the last two steps of review, which we could talk about. But let's just say that it went into experimental as a result of this ordinance passing. And 90 days, I would imagine that the chief is going to want to have traffic safety take a look and see what has happened in that 90 days experimental. So if a determination is made that it's not less safe, that there's been no problems, there's been no accidents, there's no reason to not allow it to continue, then those stop signs can get added to the ordinance, the quarterly ordinance, to be made permanent. And consequently, if there are accidents,
right,
and the experiment says that it's not, then it would not go on to the ordinance to make it
But
permanent.
who makes that decision?
It would go through the same process: traffic safety, engineer, back to the ward commissioner, and then ultimately the board.
Okay, so it's not just the chief, it's not traffic safety, it has to go through the entire
Through the
process?
same process.
Okay, okay. I don't expect that to happen, but if
Yeah.
it did, we should be
It would go
prepared.
back through the same process.
Okay.
So you and I have had several conversations about this. So I guess my fear was that too many of these situations would come up where, you know, there's 15 of us, we all have numerous intersections, and that if they're pulled off, which I think maybe is what you're asking too, if we find that they're not a good fit, I mean, this could be a full-time job, putting up new stop signs, taking them down. And so it seems to me it almost has to be I don't know how to put this, but like a rejection kind of thing. If there is a problem, then they get taken down. Or somebody's going to be putting them up and evaluating and putting them down like constantly.
The expectation is that if they go up experimentally and there are no accidents, there any of the fears that would cause it to not have been put up in the first place, if it is not less safe, then it would automatically go
Just
upon
stay up.
into the ordinance to be adopted. That the only time they would not go forward is if all of a sudden, like, for example, Rockwell and Jericho, there was concerns that coming down the hill, that there'd be accidents, or somebody would run into the back of someone else, or it would cause an unsafe condition for the motorist or pedestrian. If in that case, those things occurred, then under the experimental, it would not be made permanent in the ordinance. It would not go forward. The experiment would end, you'd be advised of that, the commissioner from that ward would be advised of that, and it would be over.
And that would be through public safety. We would know about accidents, so it would be in public safety's hands.
You would know.
To be unsafe.
You would know. There would be a report that generated that said that we've had accidents that we're ending the experimental, we're not moving it forward.
Right. Commissioner Myers, does that make sense?
Well, and I know that I am taking this to the extreme, but you have to prepare for that. If whatever the change is deemed unsafe, and you're having multiple accidents, I mean, there has to be a mechanism where you stop it right away.
Sure.
Okay.
That's why it's experimental. That would be, to me, the chief's determination.
Well, that's what I was trying to determine, that
If I may, Commissioner, we would be continuously monitoring any of these, the installation where it doesn't meet the warrants, just to see if it is causing more harm. And in that case, we would have to act, and we'll have a mechanism, I'm sure, in place to do that, because we can't take that risk. I understand.
And the
Warrants or a safety test.
Say that
Let's be
again.
clear about that. Warrants or a safety test, where it's not becoming less safe. We have
And
to apply a
it's-
little common sense in some of these situations.
They still have to go through a process to get into the experimental stage, like it does now.
So it goes through the same process it does now. Traffic safety, through whoever the chief designates, notifies that it doesn't meet whatever standards were applied, and I take it to the commissioner says, well, you know what, and this is another discussion we have to have, because in order to engage traffic engineers, you're going to have to appropriate dollars. So if that comes to that, we're going to be asking you for an appropriation, a supplemental appropriation, because there are no dollars left. We used up traffic safety's money with the other projects. So you're going to have to appropriate dollars to engage traffic safety. That's why it says, or it can come before you, and you as a board will approve the experimental regulation.
So we're not going to have, say, next month, for example, 100 experimental ones come up. I mean, there has to still be, it has to go through a system to get to that point.
Yeah, the chief and I met again today to go through how we want to populate that list. Yeah, and many of these traffic safety is already reviewed. But I will tell you from my conversations with a number of commissioners, there are commissioners that have 2 or 3 intersections that they are going to want to try the experimental.
Commissioner Thompson.
Just to clarify, so the experimental, when we move forward with that, is that a temporary installation, something that's fully removable and maybe can go on to another experimental location
Yes.
somewhere else? Yeah. So it's not a permanently fixed sign when it goes up during that first 90 days?
Any sign can come back down.
Yeah, okay.
I anticipate that your agenda is going to be getting much longer in the future.
But for a
I
time.
would assume at some point, though, that's going to stop. I mean, yeah, I would think initially it's going to, but, I mean, it's crazy to think that we're going to have a stop sign on, virtually every corner, so every month you're going to have all of these.
No, I think the commissioners, and you, I believe you know your wards better than anyone. I believe you know what intersections are troublesome. 15 commissioners, if you had 2 or 3 intersections that are troublesome, and you think about how many intersections there are throughout Abington Township, I think it's going to be a very tiny percentage of intersections that, compared to the number of intersections township-wide.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to be something that is a proliferation unless you have constituents who come to you with concerns.
And I think also that, for the public too, that we might want to make clear that it's, where there have been potential accidents, near misses or whatever, I mean, I know speeding is a problem throughout every single street in the township. And I think all the commissioners get a lot of residents concerned that their street is a cut through or whatever, and, people are speeding on it. stop signs aren't necessarily the best way to, put a stop sign on every single street to make people slow down, because you would just be constantly stopping and starting, and, yeah.
We had that happen recently on a sign, the unintended consequences of a do not enter sign. It was school buses going down streets, and we took care of that pretty quickly, if I recall, where we were able to remove that. We also know through experience that there have been sometimes stop signs that needed to be installed in locations where the warrants weren't met. I'm thinking of Commissioner Hecker's ward, maybe London, and others where there have been near misses or horrific accidents. So I think this gives a little bit more latitude to look at these problem intersections
Right.
and give some flexibility to the commissioners and I guess the manager on this case.
And just,
Yeah, I think we do all have a few of those, yeah. I do.
and I think the other thing that's important to note, we didn't create the experimental language. That language has been a tool available within the township code for a very long time. So we just, literally, when we were working through this, looking for alternatives, came upon it and felt it was a valuable tool for you to try.
Are there any other commissioner comments? So this is not in motion form right now.
Well, the resolution is intact, so you could make it a motion to recommend adoption of the resolution as it's written here.
Okay.
Just take it from consider to approve as you did in the others.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to recommend the adoption of Resolution 2018-026 as written.
Motion?
You're making the motion?
Mhm.
Okay. Do we have a
Second.
second? It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation at all about this from the commissioners? Okay, staff? Audience? Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS 07061418 is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2157, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 14, Stop Intersections, and Article 3, Parking Regulations at Sections 25, parking prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, and 28 special purpose parking zones to add stop intersections on King Road, Garden Road, and Wesley Avenue, add no parking here to corner signs on Keswick Avenue, repeal no parking here to corner signs on Fair Hill Avenue, add special purpose parking restrictions on Rockwell Road, and repeal special purpose parking restrictions on Arlington Avenue, all as more fully set forth in the ordinance, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Commissioner Vahey.
The agenda item lists stop signs on Garden Road, but I don't see that in the actual proposed ordinance.
Stop intersections on King Road, Garden Road, and Wesley Avenue.
My apologies, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? Staff, audience? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And that concludes our formal agenda. Do we have any public comment on public safety issues this evening?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. So I just want to, for the record, for all of you, that was not correct information, that Chief Livingood had done what he said he would do on the Police Pension Association. So Chief Malloy has agreed that we're going to at least talk about that, am I correct? And that we'll look at that again, okay? The wording is in teeny tiny font that no one can see. And what needs to be changed is the wording needs to be so people can understand that that's not from the police, large enough so that they can see it. And then the other issue, Commissioner Schreiber, is very, very serious, is you know, the condition not only of the homes, that's a code enforcement problem, but the public safety part of that issue. I was through Commissioner Luker's ward, I mean, 5 houses within a couple of blocks that are desperately for years in need of fixing, that people don't understand those things, but the safety on some of them, in one case, the roof is completely gone. In other places, the roof, I understand, is caved in from somebody who had been inside the building. In other cases, there's raccoons and vermin and so on going off into the neighbor's yards. So these are public safety issues, quality of life issues, and the things that you're sitting in that chair because of. So your response to me when I suggested that Mr. Littlefield, if he's being paid to come to that meeting, needs to come prepared. And your response was, residents don't get to make up the systems.
That was not my response, but you can continue.
If you want
your
to share
comment.
what your response
Yes,
was, I'm happy to have you
sure.
corrected. So I said...
I will wait
that-
till you're finished, though.
Okay, well, and I'd like a chance to correct that if you're...
This is
if
not a
you've
debate. We've been
misspoken.
through the rules.
Well, a debate is something quite different than when somebody makes a mistake and it's corrected. So, and it's different than asking questions, too. So what I suggested was Mr. Littlefield had absolutely no sheet or way of keeping these properties track of what had happened on these properties. This was a property that we had ad infinitum been over. And many times he didn't know what the code was still, and he didn't know what the last issue with the property owner was. That's solved very simply by having a sheet in a file, and that sheet comes to the meeting, as well as the code in case something needs to be looked up. It's so simple. And with your encouragement, that would have happened. And that would have changed things for properties and property owners in this township who have to drive by the blighted things, who have to live next door to the blighted things, but in many cases, who have unsafe conditions that they live in because of these properties. And those aren't the only safety issues where your attitude and your willingness to work with somebody who's willing to spend her time to work on these issues makes a difference. So,
Thank you for your comments.
yeah, so I'd like to hear what it is you have to say.
Thank you. And just to clarify, my statements at the meeting were, after the third time that the resident brought up the exact same thing, we had all heard it, I would assume possibly, and I could be wrong about this, that it may have come up at other meetings, but it was brought up at least 3 times at that meeting. I said, you are not the person who makes the systems in place. I did say that after the third time that you had said it. It is not your job to tell either committees or departments. People have a chain of command who does that. I don't necessarily think you're wrong that there should be a system in place, but it's not your job to make that system, and that is what I said. So thank you. This is not a debate. Are there any other public comments?
It's our job
It is,
together to
it is not-
encourage it.
Please sit down, Ms. Lehman.
My name is Raymond Bell. I live at 2076 Parkview Avenue. I have been absent to many of these meetings. Probably some of you were glad I wasn't able to attend some of these. But let me just say one thing. I've been in this township for 34 years. I have never, ever experienced anything but positive responses from the police department. Contrary, you had invited an officer who's here to stay at my house at the corner so people wouldn't go through the traffic sign. I didn't invite him to the house, so he can't stay there. But I don't want to make light of the fact that, you know, we can damn a lot of things in this township and to people, but I'll tell you one thing. I feel safe in this township. I feel safe when I call the police department and I get a response. I feel safe when the responders come to my home, help save my wife's life, and also the fire department. A lot of people have a lot of things to say, but I'll tell you one thing. None better, in my opinion. And to the chief of police, I didn't recognize him in a suit, but I just want to say thanks to the police department who go out every night, right, and how much I appreciate that. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, can we have a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to
Okay, I'm
correct
sorry.
the record with regard to Chief Livingood. He did address Ms. Lehman's concerns with regard to the solicitation for our retirement pension, the private pension fund. I did talk to Ms. Lehman, and she wanted the more bold font and print, and I just wanted to correct the record because I know Commissioner Meyer spoke up last month on behalf of Chief Livingood, and I just thought it'd be important for me to say that, especially
Thank
since
you.
the chief is not here.
Thank you.
It's particularly upsetting to suggest that retired Chief Livingood did not keep his word, because, as we all know, he not only keeps his word, he goes much further. So to suggest that is so wrong, and he did exactly what was agreed upon. Now, if there's something else that's warranted, or there's a change that could be made even better, that's fine. But no one should suggest that Chief Livingood did not keep his word.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Pet fair. Somebody needs to do that. I'll be the-
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Public Affairs Committee
No, there's not, you're right about that.
and start with a roll call. Here.
Here.
Here. Commissioner Spiegelman, the usual chair of this committee, is absent tonight, so I will take care of the agenda. The first item is to consider the approval of the minutes. I'd make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 4th, 2018 Public Affairs Committee meeting.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Are there any corrections or additions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a presentation tonight? No. We'll move on to unfinished business. No presentation, correct? Looking at Public Affairs 5061418. Someone's phone is ringing and causing a little help. Can you turn your phone off?
Yeah, oh, it's right here. It's not my phone, though. I just want that to be known. Whose phone is it? Tommy's phone?
The mine. Down there. Someone's phone is ringing. We'll get back to that. You don't mind. Sorry about that.
Can we document that moment in some way, shape, or form?
Okay. All right, returning to our unfinished business. We are to consider approving the agreement by and between Abington School District and the Township of Abington as recited and contained for the purpose of township waiver of fees and school district waiver of permit fees. And are we going to have any comment on that? Just
Very simply, as you know, this is a matter that was before you. There were two items before you. There was the overarching issue of waiver of fees, and this came in as a part of the waiver of fees. Through numerous discussions, as a result of discussions at these public meetings, there was a meeting with the school district and various members of the board, and it evolved to, in essence, an agreement. It's no longer, the issue no longer is necessarily a waiver of fees, but the adoption of an agreement by and between both parties. A lot of municipalities may call this a shared services agreement, more so than a fee agreement. The school district, and you have it in your packets, and again, just so everyone understands, what you see the public also gets online. So what you have is the information that is from the school district that outlined all that they do for the township in their request for this agreement. I think it's been self-evident. I think there have been numerous discussions here, and it's in front of you for action.
thank you. and I think it enjoys the support of a majority of their commissioners, but we shall soon find out. Any comments from anybody on the committee? Yes.
I have always been, and I continue to be, in support of waiving these fees. And I know some will disagree with me, but I feel that we are two government agencies, and this is tax money. So to take it out of one pocket and put it in the other really doesn't make sense to me. And I think that we have many agreements with the school district where they help us out, and we certainly do the same and help them out. So I'm not really sure why we wouldn't do this, but I'm in favor of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers, and I share those remarks. Anyone else on the committee? Commissioners Larger, Commissioners Opponent.
What's the reason for the permit waivers? I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars. Why are we there?
I believe that, as Commissioner Myers expressed, the idea is that we could collect it, and then they would have to tax the taxpayers a little more to pay it. And what's the use in that? We're both taxing agencies, and now we've restricted it to just the school district, so there's no room around the edges for other nonprofits or somebody else to try and come in and try and get their fees waived. So we've restricted it. We've made it an agreement between the school district and the township, and I just think it's, why charge them that fee when they're just going to charge the taxpayers in the end? Yeah.
Okay, so now what kind of agreement are we going to make with our senior citizens? What kind of agreement are we going to make?
Unfortunately, we don't have the power to make agreements with the senior citizens.
Why not?
Because that's a legislative issue, and that's taken up by Harrisburg, as we all know.
No. I'm not talking about Harrison. I'm talking about here. We're making an agreement with the school district. I want to know what we're doing for the senior citizens of this township.
Well, that's not on the agenda.
For them, can they go to the school district and they can't afford to buy their medication because they have to pay the tax? Is the school district going to say to them, forget your taxes for this month? I don't think so.
Well, we're not forgiving any taxes. We're merely forgiving the permits and waive fees.
Tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money. I don't care what pocket it goes in or comes out. I don't care. It doesn't look right. Okay? If a 90-year-old woman goes in for a permit, okay, to put up a 4-foot piece of fence, she's got to pay. Okay? If I have something done to my house, I have to pay. Okay? That's what we're here to do. So just to say, all right, there's $100,000 in permit fees we're waiving. Really? I don't think my residents would be happy with that decision. Well, this is something I've been fighting for years. It's not right. It don't look right.
Unfortunately, we don't share your conceptual view of the matter.
That's fine. That's me. Okay, that's me looking after my senior citizens and my taxpayers, who I get to call every year because taxes go up. We get the blame for it. Not just me, everybody get the blame for higher taxes. And I tell them the municipal taxes did not go up. It's the school district taxes that went up. Okay? So what do you tell your senior citizen? I'm a senior citizen. What do you tell me?
Well, we would tell them that we forgave the fees, and therefore the school board doesn't need as much money, so maybe their taxes won't go up this year.
It's been going up for years and years and years, and I'm sure the ones like me and Peggy and Mr. Luker over there have been getting calls every year. I get them every year. Why'd my taxes go up? Your municipal taxes did not go up. You need to go to the school district and address it to them. Okay, so I'm up here speaking for my senior citizens and my residents, okay, that I've been discussing this issue with them for months and months and months and months. Okay, so I'm up here defending them, the senior citizens of this township. I'm defending them. Maybe none of yous will, but I will. I'm a senior myself.
Commissioner Bowman.
So I know I'm not going to get anywhere with this, but I am putting it out there. It's on TV. I want everybody here, Dennis Sapone, stick up for the senior citizens of this township.
Commissioner Bowman. I guess, 1 second. Conceptually, the difference is that this is a taxing agency that we're giving the waiver to. A senior citizen is different. That's a private individual.
Why is a senior citizen different? They pay taxes. Why is a senior citizen different? Okay, and to top it off, a veteran senior citizen. Okay, that somebody's got to look out after these people. I sure as hell do, constantly. So that's my opinion. And I know it's not going to go anywhere, but it's on TV that Dennis Sapone is defending the senior citizens and the veterans in this township. I'm done.
Okay, yes, Commissioner Klein.
Yeah. I actually think having this agreement and waiving the fees does help the senior citizens, because if we were to charge the school district, now we're actually adding to their budget for this specific project and any further projects. So I'm along the lines of Commissioner Myers. I agree with the agreement. I do have a couple of minor comments, well, not minor, one that I would like to throw out there and have some understanding as to the ramifications. But the first thing I would like to say is I do want to make sure that this agreement stays this agreement identifies things that are purely township-related and school district-related events, and the 24-hour relay is put in here. I do know that it's part of the township, schedule throughout the year, and the school district, both the school district and the police department do get involved, and quite a lot of other volunteers. But it is a sponsored event from CAPT, and I don't think it should be in this agreement because they're not part of that agreement. So I do think that should be taken out, and that's on the second page, where it says 24-hour relay. The other thing is, I would like to have some explanation, the professional services, and when I talk about professional services, I'm talking about outside consultants that the township would have to bring in for any kind of land development, whether it be traffic engineers or such, whether that should be included as part of the waiver, because those are fees that we would pay outside of our budget or outside of our overall expenditures to look at a project, whether it be the school district or be a private developer. These are fees that we would get reimbursed for because they're fees that wouldn't ordinarily occur unless this development or this land development was occurring. So I'd like to get some explanation as to why the professional services are being waived also. I understand all the rest of it. As far as the waived fees, I don't understand the professional services.
My understanding, and I don't want to speak for the school district, and this is why I said, while this this agreement specifically talks about the fees of both parties, my understanding was it was because this, as the discussions evolved, as I mentioned, it became more of an issue of shared service and in particular total cost. So when the question came up about how much the fees are, the school district moved forward with basically identifying all costs, and they believed, and they can answer it themselves, but my understanding is that they believe the cost of what, on their side, of what they're not charging us and what they're waiving for us was greater than any fees that we would be charging. Therefore, they included professional services and all other fees. Now, clearly, it's up to the Board of Commissioners, and the school district can certainly confirm if my understanding is accurate or not, but I think they looked at it as total cost. It's very simply.
So am I to understand this agreement is based on actual dollar values and not conceptual idea that this is one taxing entity and another taxing entity, understanding that charging fees for certain things, charging internal expenses and fees that are absorbed by both the school district and the township need to have some kind of equalizer of dollar value? Because that wasn't my understanding. I think it was just really that we weren't transferring we weren't transferring the burden of these fees from one taxing entity to another. I didn't know that we were counting dollars here for one and trying to even out the balance sheet.
I can't speak for the district.
Okay. So, I mean, that's...
But
I didn't think that was the concept
that's my
here. I mean, I
understanding.
realize at some points there might be where the school district is certainly waiving more value to the township, as we may be, and some years, you know, in specifically when they have large projects like the high school project that's going to occur, the value of the township side is larger than what the school district. I mean, but I didn't think that we were talking about trying to even out a balance sheet here. I thought this was really just a conceptual idea that there was no point in transferring money back and forth between two taxing entities, and that's why I asked the question about the professional fees. Professional services that would be incurred at.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, if we could have a school superintendent, Ms. Sickle.
Amy Sickle, Superintendent, Abington School District, and thank you for asking me to address this. Specifically in response to Commissioner Klein's questions, I think it's twofold. I think one is the issue of taxing body to taxing body, and that it really makes no sense. But as you are aware, and with the data that we provided to you, there are a lot of expenses that we waive on an annual basis, the largest being the Ardsley Community Center, which since the mid-'80s, we have charged $1. And frankly, that's a nice facility that could have had rent for us for many, many years, which we did not charge. In terms of other activities, and some may pertain to related organizations, such as the 24-hour relay, but we bring in, for example, you have had programs in the last couple of weeks where you've needed a large auditorium. We provide the sound, we provide the electrician to run the microphones and things of that nature for you, which is all additional cost to the Abington School District. And we do not charge you for those. For other external organizations that are within Abington, such as PTOs, we charge them a cost basis when they reach a certain amount of funding. And if it's a civic group, we charge them a cost basis, not a rental fee. So we waive all costs to you. I can go through some of them if that would be important. And there are many services that you provide to us just in everyday operation, but there are also services that we pay for, such as the school resource officers or the crossing guards or security at different of our events, because we do that above and beyond what you give us gratis. So it's not a dollar for dollar, but it is an expectation that it is both the issue of taxes and the issue of we waive all of your fees. We would like that in return. We infrequently come to you for fees because it's only when we have building projects. We probably have not come for a fee waiver since we fixed the last couple of elementary schools, which would have been Roslyn and it would have been Willow Hill. So since we've done those, and now we are back to you for the high school, which is a large permit fee, and we would like that to be waived as well. So we see this as a mutual agreement based mostly on taxes, but answering your questions in regard to dollar figures.
Mr. Bowman, can I follow up on and ask
Yes.
the superintendent
Please
some
do.
questions? So you talked about like the electricians setting up and setting up audio stuff, which I know is part of some of the uses that we've had in the towns.
Yes.
Most recently, the planning commission. Are those people that are on staff or people that you're bringing outside of the
Those
school
people are on
district
staff, but they are on overtime because they work during the day, and we bring them back to service your permits.
Okay.
So it's additional cost for the school district, and we charge you nothing. Or, for example, the Martin Luther King program, as Commissioner Luker remembers, for many years, it was paid for by the township, then it was paid for by both organizations, and I'd say within the last 5 to 10 years, we have not charged you at all. So those are the kinds of things that we do in a shared basis that's good for the community of Abington.
And as far as the school resource officer and the crossing guards, I assume that the school district recognizes that that's also an asset to the school district. both of those
Absolutely, we
fees.
do.
So-
Absolutely, we do.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, thank you for your
Do
time.
we have an idea of what what outside professional fees, if any, will be part of the land development approval or the land development process for the high school?
we have not calculated those as they're just going through the process. We certainly can't estimate them.
Okay. That'd be something I'd be interested to know. I'm not going to get hung up on the professional services. It's just really a margin of question. I would like to get away from a conversation about counting dollars on both sides of the fence. I would like to make sure that any references to activities that are not specifically sponsored by the township specifically are not in the agreement.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comment? Commissioner Zappone?
The Ardsley Community Center is the jewel of Ardsley, okay? Because the township maintenance facilities people maintain and take care of that building. So any upgrades that are in that building, the township people did it. Okay, just want to clarify that.
Any other commissioner comments? Comments from the public?
Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. I am absolutely against any agreement of fees that you scratch my back, and I'll scratch your back. What I like to see as a citizen is, what are we talking about in dollars? What did the school board pay last year in fees? What did the board here approve in fees, right? I don't know where you've been, but I just saw someplace where some gentleman in New York gave a whole bunch of money to this school district and no one knew about it. And you want me as a citizen to sit here, I mean, I'm a senior citizen, way far more than Commissioner Zappone. I pay taxes in this township for 34 years. And for you to sit here and say to me, or say to this township, well, we're just going to look the other way, and it's going to be a taxable. You're abrogating my rights, because if I don't have a right, when you want to spend money, to come to a meeting and say, don't spend the money, I can't do it there. I can't do it there. I am absolutely aghast that no dollars have been mentioned. You know, what did we spend last year? What did the school spend last year? Now I understand I got another bond coming up for $40 million. You know, you're going to tax me out of this township. I've been here 34 years. I got an idea, Mr. Zappone, Commissioner Zappone, I agree with you. Stop taxing senior citizens. Stop taxing veterans. This is wrong. And for you to even consider it is wrong. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane, what he said this time, not last time. So first of all, I want to say, Commissioner Bowman, I know you haven't sat in that chair very often, but the chair of a meeting, if you look at Robert's Rules of Order, is not supposed to argue or counter what the other, you're there to mediate the meeting and not counter what everybody else is saying. So I just want to bring that up. The way that this was originally brought up was absolutely, I mean, deceitful. It was brought up originally that there was $1,000, I think, that was being waived and $11,000 in escrow. This is for a $100 million project where the permit fee alone, I think on our $100,000 edition, I think our permit fee was something like $500. So what would that make this, $500,000? And the fact that nobody is talking about what that number is, as Mr. Bell just said, is disgraceful. How do you have a budget where you could maybe take $500,000 here or there, and you don't even have to worry about it at budget time? Oh, by the way, we have a few million over here, so if we run over $500 million there, it's no problem. Your budgets need to be correct. The citizens deserve those budgets to be correct, and you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours is hugely an issue. It's irresponsible fiscal management. The project also, when the school calculated to get their loans and make all their figures, they surely calculated in for permit fees and professional services and land development and all of that. So what was their figure that is now going to be waived because they're getting loans for that the taxpayers are paying? And you are now giving the school that much money to play with however they want. So that is you know, all of that is an issue. The township, again, that's great that you may have taken the nonprofits out, but the township-related nonprofits are nonprofits too. They're still nonprofits, where if I don't want to give my particular money to CAPT or to 24-hour Relay, how do you have the right to do that? So this is, you know, all of this is not okay. The township needs a budget line for this. If you have a $100 million project coming up at budget time, you might need to have an extra code department person, and that has to be budgeted for. And the school, again, when you're not paying for something, you tend to spend differently. So the fact that I didn't read the whole thing tonight, I didn't have time, but if land development issues and professional services are also included in this, this is outrageous. This is a huge project, and the amount of money has never been discussed. That's wrong. You should not be doing this, and you need to keep your budgets correct. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, Commissioner Shriver.
Excuse me. I agree with taking the nonprofits out because we've agreed to do that anyway. So if there's nonprofits that are mentioned, they should be taken out. My fear about not doing this, I guess is putting this in place, is that it's actually going to make taxes go higher for senior citizens and others. And because the fees will just continue to go up then for us and for them. So I'll be voting in favor of this to protect people because I think it will actually make taxes go higher, not lower, by doing that.
Please, can you explain?
No comments from the audience.
It's a question.
Are you done, Commissioner Shriver? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. I really wasn't pleased with the "you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours" comment. What I honestly believe, and I certainly respect everyone's opinion, is that this money will be passed along to the taxpayer. I honestly believe that. That if these fees are paid to the township, they will still be passed along to the taxpayer, the Abington taxpayer, in their school taxes. I honestly believe that. I don't think we're saving any money either way.
Superintendent Sigal?
Yes.
Hold on for a minute. How does she get to come up?
Keep quiet, sir.
I'd like to
Superintendent
make a comment before I answered. I'm also a resident of Abington Township, so I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to clarify the record. Please know that the school district, for as long as I can recall, and I was appointed the assistant superintendent in 1990, the school district has never paid for any construction permits, never has paid for professional fees. So we appreciate that this will continue. So therefore, in our calculation of this project, there was no calculation for both permit fees or professional fees because we have enjoyed that relationship with you in the past. And the goal this evening is to codify the agreement that both organizations enjoy. And I think what's important here, it's not because the school district is a nonprofit, it's because the school district is a political subdivision. I am very comfortable to bring back to the Board of School Directors what was suggested here about removing the nonprofits. I'll be happy to do that and to provide a, obviously with their approval, a revised agreement back to Mr. Manfredi. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Yes, Commissioner Vahey.
May I ask a question of Dr. Sickle?
If she's willing.
Yep.
Dr. Sickle, if we were to not waive the fee and demand the fees, would you have to finance those fees?
I would have to go back to the Board of School Directors, and they'd have to make a decision as to how they would choose to pay for it, whether it would be financed out of the bond fund, whether it would be out of the general fund. They would have to make that decision.
If it's financed, it would be extra interest charges involved with that?
There could be extra charges involved.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've exhausted all comment. Are we ready to vote, committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Passes 4-0. All right, moving on to new business.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, can I just clarify something, or?
Yes.
There was talk about taking out the nonprofits in the agreement.
Well, I noted that they are only mentioned in the recitals, and that's just used as examples of things that the school district did not charge us for. Certainly, they can be excised from the final draft. All right, moving on to new business. Public Affairs, PA 01-06-1418. This is a motion to ratify the submission of the grant application and adopt resolution number 18024, authorizing the township manager to enter into any agreements between Abington Township and the Commonwealth Financing Authority to facilitate and assist in obtaining the grant, and I so move.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Is there comment from the committee? Comment from other commissioners here present? Comment from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. PA 2-06-1418. Consider a motion to adopt ordinance number 2156, amending Chapter 126, the Real Estate Registry, vacant properties, at Section 126-4, registration statement and fees, local agent, subsection D, waiver of registration fee. I'll turn to the township manager for a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, this was a ordinance that was originally proposed by Commissioners Spiegelman, but primarily by Commissioner Schreiber. At a recent vacant property review board, there were two changes that came out of a discussion that they had at that meeting. One was waiver of fees, and who had the ability to do so. Right now, the ordinance is written to have the Board of Commissioners solely waive any fees. It was discussed to have it as perhaps another designee, maybe allow the vacant property review board itself. After talking with Commissioner Spiegelman, who unfortunately isn't here this evening, and Commissioner Schreiber, if you were to waive any fees, the recommendation would be to be the commissioners or the township manager, if. The other change was to basically, on the appraisals, make it commercially verifiable. So there are two changes to what you actually approved and are advertised. And the question that we'll have to review between now, and this just came up, by the way, between now and next week is if those changes, should you choose to make them, would require re-advertising. And for that, I'll defer to council. But I guess you should talk about whether or not you'd want to do that. Like right now, there are registration fees. Commissioner Schreiber, I don't know if you want to address it. You were at that meeting.
No, I mean, I think we did discuss this before. I'm in favor of us making these changes, but I understand that the second one is not what we had discussed previously, and so we may have to, well, actually, I guess both of them we hadn't discussed previously.
Right.
And so, I'll wait to hear from our solicitor if we need to re-advertise, but I'm in favor of this. I think it will, and we might come back actually with a third change later, but that one is more substantial. So, or I guess, right? Did you talk, do you know what I'm talking about?
The two changes to the current ordinance that you have in front of you or current ordinance amendment that you have in front of you that are being proposed, it is my opinion that neither of them is substantial enough that would require re-advertising. It can just be amended before next Thursday, and it could be voted on next Thursday if the committee moves it forward to next Thursday.
Thank you.
Comments from other commissioners? Hearing none. Any comment from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. PA 3. This is a motion to adopt Resolution 18-025, the amended pre-fiscal year 2015, FY 2015 and FY 2017 annual action plans are approved as presented. authorizing the President of the Board of Commissioners to sign and submit the amended pre-fiscal year 2015. I'm guessing that should be 2016, the next,
No, it's 2 years.
okay, 15 and 2017 annual action plan to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I so move.
Second.
Van, is this standard procedure?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments from commissioners? Other commissioners present? Staff or the public? Yes, ma'am.
So Laura Lehman, 1431 Bryant Lane. The HUD project that did the clubhouse was part of an action plan, I guess. And I am asking for an investigation into that. I would like to know what the price per square foot was. We have a room that is like 40 by something, and a couple of bathrooms and a small kitchen that cost $1.6 million. That is an absolute outrage. For that amount of money, we could have had so much more that would have served the children in that neighborhood. The kids from Crestmont could have come right to the park and done homework after school on computers that could have been in a separate room. There's one room that can be used at a time, that's it. It's beyond belief. So I would like to have some discussion. Mr. Strother hung up, said he had another call and never called me back, so I've not been able to complete that conversation. I would ask first to complete these conversations behind the scenes, but if there's nothing that's going to be forthcoming, I am openly asking for an investigation into how HUD money is being used. The $17 million project, many of you sat right in those chairs the other day and saw the flaws in the construction and heard the problems that they're having with brand new issues, brand new buildings. That also deserved an investigation. There's something so wrong with this, and I recall one commissioner saying, well, we need to help these people with their housing. Well, when you spend that much money doing something that helps so few people, then you have a whole lot of people that aren't being helped. And HUD money is extremely important to go to the right people and in an amount that helps each one of them, not gives somebody the Taj Mahal while somebody else is still homeless. Thank you.
All right, any other public comment? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. This is PA4. This is a motion to authorize the CAO and the second CAO to execute the policy statement and permanent agreement by and between the Township of Abington and the Pennsylvania Department of Education for the Summer Food Service Program. This authorization is also extended to the other related documents required by PDE to be executed and submitted to complete the application, and to further ratify the township's support of and programming for an Abington Township Summer Food Service Program, and I so move.
Second.
Any comments from commissioners on the committee? Yes, Commissioner Schreiber.
We had a conversation about this the other day, actually, in the parking lot, but I think maybe the commissioners and the public would be interested in a little update of where the summer program's going. Like the dates, the changes, there's been a few changes.
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. This year, for the second year, Abington Township will be offering free lunches at the Crestmont.
Just tap that, yeah.
Is that better?
If the green light's on, it's activated. Okay, good.
Can you hear me now? Is that better?
Yes.
That's much better? Apologize. This year, Abington Township, for the second year, will be offering free lunches for any child of the age of 18 or younger. All they have to do is come to Crestmont Park and free lunches will be offered. It'll be starting Monday, June the 18th, and run till Friday, August the 17th. This year, what's different, Abington Township has the opportunity to directly contract with the Department of Education at the state level, and which will be having better meal choices, and we can contract with a different vendor this year, much improved meal choices, a better service, and actually we'll be reducing our operating expense where this vendor will be bringing food directly to Crestmont Park. We have a new facility to operate out of. The meals will be ate outside of the building, but we will store food. There's refrigeration there. There's storage there. So we can serve the population much better this year than we had worked last year. And there's a lot of other programs that will be operating out of this building. The Parks and Recs will be operating their summer youth program out of this building. The children won't be inside, but staff will have access to the inside for storage of basketball games, and the children will continue working and playing outside of this building.
Thank you, Van. Commissioner Schreiber?
No, I just wanted to also say that if people have not put that in their newsletters or whatever to help advertise it, I know we were lucky enough to get it on the school district's website through Van's work, and so the children should be able to get that from their, schools as well, but if we could help advertise it so that all the children will know that they can have those meals, maybe we can get our numbers up a little bit higher, and they can know that that's available to them.
Thank you. Commissioner Schreiber, other commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Just a couple questions. And I was very aware of the program last year and got to go and visit and witness it. Last year, who will be manning this program? Because last year, Representative Dean, I think, got 2 volunteers to be there. How is the staffing going to be handled this year?
Last year, Abington Township had 2 paid staff persons, part-time seasonal workers working there. Because that the meal will be brought to the site this year, we can reduce it down to 1. And the work of distributing the meals is that a child comes up to the table, you hand the meal, you make a record of the number of meals being distributed, and the task is done. I've talked to State Representative Dean's office. As long as we're welcoming volunteers, as long as they meet all the child check criteria and give all the documentation as required, we're welcome to have volunteers. I've received several emails from other volunteers that work at other school districts, parents, and gave them the same requirement. As long as anyone who wants to volunteer meets the criteria for meeting all the child check proofs, FBI fingerprinting, we're welcome to have them.
And last year, one of the requirements was that the children and the children had to eat it there. They had to eat lunch physically there. Is that still the same requirement?
Yes, that's the same requirement.
Okay. But you'll have a much nicer facility in which to eat.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay.
Much nicer facility, and there's many things that happens operating out of that facility.
Right, right.
And I just want to add that volunteers can also be commissioners if you have your clearances. So Commissioner Myers, myself, Commissioner Kalinowski, we all had our clearances. We were there at different times, but...
Other commissioner comment? Yes, Commissioner Klein.
Yeah, I know I've been talking to Commissioner Schreiber often about this. I know how hard she's worked on it, so I just wanted to commend her on continuing to push for this program.
I didn't do most of the work. Van did the work, but thank you.
It's a team effort.
Okay. Any other commissioner comment? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And then lastly, we have PA 6. This is to consider a motion to approve the appointments to the Economic Development Committee of the following individuals: Randy Elton, a term ending 12/31/20, Naish Patel, a term ending 12/31/20, and Michael Kelly Cataldi for a term ending 12/31/20. 2020.
Second, are we looking for a second?
I guess
to the
we
motion?
could make it
Say that?
actual motion if
Yeah.
we, instead of just a consideration. We'll make it an actual motion. This is a motion to approve the appointments of those 3 individuals to those terms ending on those dates.
Then I'll second it, now that it's a motion.
Motion's been moved and seconded. Any comment from the committee members? Yes, Commissioner Myers.
Just a question. Does this complete the committee? Is this everyone? Are we finished voting on members for the committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other commissioners present with comment? Hearing none. Comment from staff or the public? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. That concludes the agenda items that are listed. We would now move to public comment on public affairs matters. Any public comment on public affairs matters? Yes, ma'am.
So, public affairs. So let me start, first of all, to aid the public in their access to the government, to the information, to the services that they pay for, et cetera. That should be job one, I would think. And so recently I asked, if you have no presentation, could you please write down none there? I don't see that. So it's a pretty simple request. Along the same lines came the issue with Commissioner Schreiber and myself. If that doesn't show people that we are not working together as a township to try and help the residents in this township, when she said, I had asked 3 times and that's why she
Please don't
answered
make
that
any
way."
ad hominem remarks, ma'am.
Well, let me just say, no matter how many times I would ask something, if the thing is reasonable, we should be working together, not saying you don't get to make up the systems. We all need to figure out what systems are broken and what systems need to be fixed. And any suggestion for a system that needs to be fixed should be accepted, received, instead of leaving the system broken. And that's pretty much what happened in that meeting and in the endless earlier ones, because that has been an issue for the entire time that I've sat with that board and for the entire time that I've worked with this township. There is opportunity after opportunity for these simple things to be fixed, and there is no will to do it. The agreement with Chief Livingood was between Chief Livingood and myself, although I will tell you prominently it was to be displayed that that was not part of that the Police Pension Association is not the same as Abington Police, and that was not prominently displayed. It was displayed, finally, when he did put the words in the teeniest, tiniest little print at the bottom of the endless paragraph that nobody reads that starts with, we are a 501c3 corporation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and at the very end, okay? Instead of up at the top. And I polled residents again, and they all thought it was from the police, and I've done that many times before. So those who are getting this police pension thing and thinking that it's from the police, it doesn't matter that nothing is untoward happening. It matters whether they're being deceived or not. And I just asked that something be put in so that they were not. Okay, I know we're going to get blasted on that again, and that's another issue.
You're close to the end of your time, ma'am. Please contain your remarks to 3 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. This question is for the manager. How many phone calls or complaints did the township receive, and this can include the commissioners, from residents that didn't understand the letter or felt that they were being coerced by the letter or the card inside of the letter? I'm asking a question.
I am not aware of any.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schreiber, final comment?
Yes, thank you. I know we don't usually make commissioner comments at the end of public affairs, but because this event is coming up this week, I would like to make an announcement that the thank you. The Roslyn Pet Fair is coming up this Saturday, June 9th, from 10 to 2. All the money goes to Animal Rescue, the SPCA and Animal Rescues, from the purchase of raffle tickets, or we have a DJ, we have food from R&R Caribbean Cuisine. It's a fun time, it's a good event. It's at the Church of the Living Word, 1250 Easton Road, and thank you for holding up the flyer. So if it is drizzling, we're still going to have it, but if there's rain, it will be canceled. So hopefully, let's all wish for a nice day, and please come out to the Roslyn Pet Fair. Thank you.
Thank you. We're adjourned.